Today, we're diving into the absolute grind, the grueling, decade-long detective work that finally led intelligence agencies to the world's most wanted man. You know, this isn't just your standard story of a military victory. It is literally one of the most complex puzzles in modern intelligence history.
So, how exactly did a rejected airport passenger and a mysterious courier lead the CIA straight to Osama bin Laden? It's a wild question, right? Well, we're going to see how this entire operation was far from just some lucky break. It was actually an absolute masterpiece of connecting incredibly faint dots over many years. If you love seeing how structured, methodical work cracks a seemingly impossible case, you are going to love this.
Let's get right into Section 1. The 2004 election taunt, a cold trail, and a bold message. Okay, so we're starting our timeline back in 2004, just 4 days before the highly contested Bush-Kerry U.S. presidential election. A video drops on Al Jazeera, and it sends absolute shockwaves around the world. It showed a healthy-looking Osama bin Laden directly and boldly claiming responsibility for the 9/11 attacks. The underlying message here? He wanted to show the whole world that the most wanted man on Earth was out there feeling completely secure.
Now contrast that public gloating with what was happening behind the scenes. The CIA's task force was basically hitting a brick wall. Almost every single lead had gone completely cold. It was a deeply frustrating reality for them, especially when you consider that they were incredibly close to catching him just 3 years prior.
Which brings us to Section 2, the Tora Bora prisoner, the butterfly effect of a missed clue.
To understand how they actually got back on track, we need to flash back to the chaotic aftermath of 9/11, deep in the caves of Tora Bora, Afghanistan. American forces had cornered Al-Qaeda fighters there, but after heavy airstrikes, bin Laden somehow managed to slip away. They only captured 20 men, and the CIA thought they'd completely missed their golden opportunity. But among those 20 captives was a man named Mohammed al-Qahtani. He claimed he was just in Afghanistan hunting falcons. A pretty creative excuse, right? Well, it was until they ran his fingerprints and realized he was already in their system.
Let's talk about just how suspicious this supposedly innocent falcon hunter actually was. Just weeks before 9/11, he had tried to enter the U.S. through the Orlando International Airport, carrying $2,800 in cash and a one-way ticket. A sharp customs agent actually denied his entry and deported him. So what seemed like a routine customs rejection was, in reality, a massive, massive near miss.
The connections they eventually pieced together are just chilling. On the exact same day Al-Qahtani was at that Orlando airport, a phone call was made from a booth right there to an Al-Qaeda number in the UAE. And to make things even crazier, the FBI found an abandoned rental car in the airport parking lot belonging to Mohammed Atta, the hijacker who flew Flight 11 into the North Tower. The terrifying conclusion? Al-Qahtani was no falcon hunter. He was intended to be the 20th hijacker on Flight 93.
All right, Section 3, Confessions and Contradictions, Pulling the Threads of the Network. Once they realized exactly who they had in custody, the CIA subjected Al-Qahtani to intense interrogation, and that's when the thread really began to unravel. It was like passing a baton of intelligence over the next few years. They methodically worked their way up the chain. In 2002, Abu Zubaydah was captured. That capture led directly to the 2003 capture of Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the actual architect of the 9/11 attacks. Then, moving to 2004, Hassan Gul was arrested, carrying a letter from bin Laden. Piece by piece, over 3 years, they mapped out the network. Here's where the strategy shifts. The CIA knew bin Laden wasn't using phones. He wasn't on the internet, and his family had no contact with him. He was strictly sending messages through human channels. So they completely changed their game plan. Instead of hunting directly for bin Laden, they hunted for his courier network. And one specific alias that came from Al-Qahtani, Abu Ahmed al-Kuwaiti, which literally translates to father of Ahmed from Kuwait, became their absolute prime target. But as they focused in on this courier, analysts ran into a massive contradiction. On one hand, Hassan Gul claimed Abu Ahmed was bin Laden's personal courier and incredibly important. But then, top commanders like Khalid Sheikh Mohammed totally downplayed him, claiming he was just some retired, unimportant nobody. The CIA had to figure out who was lying to protect this ghost courier. Now, it is absolutely crucial to objectively understand the context of this information. The source material explicitly notes that these conflicting profiles were gathered not just through standard questioning, but through highly controversial and harsh interrogation methods over several years, including various forms of torture. It's an important reality of how this raw intelligence was actually extracted. Moving on to Section 4, Hunting the Ghost Courier, the Digital Trap. So, despite having the alias, the trail went completely cold again for 2 whole years. But then, a breakthrough tip arrived from an outside agency in 2007, revealing the courier's real name as Ibrahim Saeed Ahmed. From there, the digital trap was officially set. The CIA started monitoring millions of calls from the Middle East to Pakistan, and after 3 years of listening, their patience finally paid off in June 2010 with a single, highly suspicious intercepted call. This prompted them to quickly deploy a Pakistani CIA agent on the ground in Peshawar. During that intercepted call, the man on the Pakistani end was asked a question, and he replied, "I am with the same people I was with before." That one cryptic sentence was everything. Plus, this target's tradecraft was intense. He only turned his phone on for a few minutes at a time, and only when he traveled away to Peshawar to avoid location tracking. This confirmed it. They had definitely found their courier. From there, the ground agent in Peshawar tracked Abu Ahmed's vehicle, eventually following him to a massive, highly secured compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan. And then the CIA just watched and waited. When they realized the courier never left this compound to visit a high-value target somewhere else, the deduction was thrillingly clear. The ultimate target had to be hiding right there, inside the compound with him. Which brings us to Section 5, the Abbottabad Raid, 40 minutes in the dark. 10 years of painstaking intelligence gathering ultimately culminated in a kinetic military operation that carried just immense geopolitical risk. 2 Black Hawk helicopters launched from Jalalabad, Afghanistan at 11 p.m. on May 1, 2011. They had to use highly classified stealth technology because they were flying directly into sovereign Pakistani airspace, and the Pakistani government was completely uninformed of the raid. To make the stakes even higher, the target compound was dangerously close to a Pakistani military academy.
38. That is the exact number of minutes the entire physical operation on the ground took, from entry to exit, an entire decade of waiting, distilled into 38 precise minutes.
The Navy SEALs moved with incredible speed. Osama Bin Laden was located on the 3rd floor and eliminated within the first 15 minutes of the raid. The remaining time was frantically spent securing the compound, neutralizing the guards, gathering massive amounts of intelligence materials, and dealing with a huge, unforeseen complication. Right during the insertion, one of those highly classified stealth helicopters experienced an emergency and essentially crash-landed. It absolutely could not take off again. So to prevent that top-secret stealth technology from falling into the wrong hands, the SEALs were forced to destroy it with explosives right there on site. Because of this, the entire assault team, along with bin Laden's body, had to cram into the one remaining helicopter to make a very tense escape back to Afghanistan. Following that successful exfiltration, U.S. officials acted rapidly. Within 24 hours of the raid, and after securing permission from Saudi Arabia, Osama bin Laden's body was buried at sea in the Arabian Sea. This swift, coordinated conclusion brought a definitive end to the most extensive, painstaking manhunt in modern history.